Are you looking for some fresh ideas to jumpstart your kitchen remodeling business? Welcome to the Crushing It with Kitchen Remodeling Podcast. Your host, Michael Goldstein, founder of Kitchen Remodeling SEO, the digital marketing agency working exclusively with kitchen remodeling contractors. And also, the author of the Ultimate Internet Marketing Guide for kitchen remodeling contractors, will provide insights on proven tips and strategies from top experts in this space so that you can take advantage of industry best practices. Your host, Michael Goldstein. Join Mike as he shares his knowledge each week with an insightful interview or educational segment about how to turn your online marketing efforts into more kitchen remodeling leads and sales opportunities than ever before.
Hi. Well, I'm okay, except for I can't hear you at all.
How about?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right. I apologize for that. Well, Katharine, I appreciate you coming on the podcast with us today to talk a little bit about the success of the both the architectural firm and the podcast itself.
Okay.
So what we want really just to kind of get an idea for is kind of how you've grown, the architectural firm and how you've, used it to leverage kitchen remodeling and home renovations, as well as kind of how your podcast itself has helped grow the business.
Okay. So, well, I started my firm about 26 years ago, right out of architecture school. Actually, it turns out I was pregnant, and people don't really like to hire pregnant women to start working. So I had to start my own firm to get my health insurance so that I could have the baby and everything. So that's how it kind of that is the unglamorous beginnings of my firm. But I always knew that I would be an architect, and so then most of the people, I do residential work, and people usually want to include their kitchen in that design, So I spent about 26 years working on the kitchen within the bigger project, So, yeah, and my podcast I started about in 2019, and originally just started as a way to get my clients to have more information, like in a library of, basic home renovation information that they would need, So there's the I was originally just thinking it would be a way for me to send clients to those things. So I'd interview experts, and then I would say, "Oh, if you want to know more about doors and windows, you can go listen to this episode." And then, strangely enough, just more people have been listening to it, which I always find amazing when I realize that people around the world are listening. I feel like, why are you listening over there in Africa or where, Afghanistan?
It's just amazing how, we start a podcast just to kind of talk, to our local audience. And then, you go on the internet and you have iTunes and you have Amazon, you have Google, and it just kind of gets picked up pretty much, across the board. So with that said, I mean, I presume that the podcast is really a good way also for you to reach your local clientele, though, and to really educate them and to create that kind of authority that you are in the space, versus, and I don't like to demean other people, but like rather than just the handyman down the street.
Right. Well, of course, I design the spaces. I don't build them so much. But yeah, it does end up making me kind of an authority on certain things, that people trust me because they have heard my podcast, or they like my guests or the information that I've given them. So they feel like they have a relationship with me. So in terms of marketing, that definitely helps. But I am not exactly the people who might listen to my podcast aren't really my ideal clients. So maybe that was kind of a mistake in setting all that up. But I also feel like, because I charge a lot of money for what I do, I feel like a little bit like I can give back to people and give them information that they can use for, that hopefully they can go do something with for no outlay from them. So it's kind of in a way, it's my way of helping people.
Sure.
It also is getting my interests out there. So I am interested in sustainability and how we can do some sustainable actions in each renovation, for example, because I feel like people are either on or off with that. Like, no, I'm not interested. But there are so many things that we could do that are just taking a little bit of a step that way. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing sort of situation. So anyway, interviewing people like about restoring windows in old houses or deconstructing instead of demolition, stuff like that. So it gets these concepts that people might not think about out there. So that's one of my missions.
Now, and it's interesting because depending on the area of the country that you're in, sustainability, just ESG, overall environmental issues, is I find it kind of hit or miss. We run a marketing agency that tailors to kitchen and bathroom modeling companies, and I find when we're working with somebody in New England and you have all that historical and colonial aspects to it, people they're very concerned. Then when we work with our remodelers down in Dallas, Texas, they don't they drive the big SUVs and they pretty much have whatever it is they have, they want what they want, and the environment be damned. And it really is interesting as I talk to people across the country how different those views are. So and I also think a lot of it has to do with kind of where you get started from. When you're brought up in an area, and I was brought up in Salem, Massachusetts.
Oh yeah, I love Salem.
Very historical.
Oh yeah.
And they have
Beautiful.
the seaside and all that. I'm really into all of it. But I think, if I probably was brought up, in New Mexico or out in the desert of Arizona, maybe I wouldn't, care as much. So it definitely does come into play. But you had said something a few minutes ago that's interesting. You said, so you have this podcast, but it's really not what grew the business. It doesn't really speak to your perfect avatar. So what is it like when you're marketing the company and you're marketing your architectural services? Who is it that you market to, and who is it that really will help build your business?
Well, as I said, I've been in business for a while, so it has kind of fluctuated. Sometimes I just need the work depending on the economy, and sometimes, like right now, I am so busy that I can barely keep up with everything. So I don't take everything that comes along because I can't. And my ideal client would be somebody who values maybe the historic aspects or noteworthy aspects of their home. Like it's no secret if anybody listens to my podcast that I really like walls. Like the whole idea of just blowing open a historic house just makes me sad. I feel like we can open them up a little bit without completely blowing them open, so there's a balance there. But anyway, so my ideal client is somebody whose main, the driving value of the project isn't the budget, right? It's more like what I really want is to be as sustainable as possible, or what I really want is to maintain the character of my house, or so that of course everybody has a budget and we try to stick within the budget, but anyway, my ideal client is somebody who just wants to do the best thing for their house and the environment, essentially, right? So
and how do you position yourself? Like how is it what is the message that you put out there so that's who you're pulling in? Those are the the people who come to you.
Yeah, well, that's a big question, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, I think I've thought a lot of different ways of marketing because, of course, there's the marketing in magazines, which doesn't work for me. It's too expensive. This is just from my own experience, but for me, it's too expensive and I don't get any return out of it. So it's kind of like I can feel good about myself that I'm in a glossy magazine, but in terms like networking, I think is the best way to get clients, because the thing is, it's a two-way relationship, really. So if I get to know people, if I'm working on a committee or if I'm working on, with clients and they refer me, referrals are important. Networking is important so that people know what you do, and kind of, that's why the podcast is a little bit helpful in that way, because people, as I said, feel like they know me because they've listened to me. But
sure.
It's that's the big question, isn't it? That's like the $1 million question. How do you get your ideal clients to come to you? But you need to get in front of them somehow. And whether, like, I'm moving to a new area of the state. I'm moving down to the South Coast
Mhm.
near New Bedford. And so I kind of have to start over again down there with getting to know people. So I'm starting to think like, where are the people that I want to work for? Right. So
Yeah.
these would be people who would be interested in, let's say, conservation of Buzzards Bay. Right. And I'm
Sure.
also interested in conservation of Buzzards Bay. So I'm following those. I'm going to get involved with those organizations, so I might be on a beach cleanup and meet people, or, so I just get out there and I get to know people, and they might say, hey, I have a friend who wants to do X, Y, and Z. Do you think you could help that person? And, so that's kind of the best way, but it's not an easy way. It takes a lot of time to do that networking. And also you can't be fake about it. Like I think you
No.
have to have an interest in it because you're spending time cleaning the beach.
Yeah, I think people can see right through it when you do that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you say. So I've worked with a couple kind of real green companies in terms of like there was actually when we first got started, I worked with this company called Green Maids, who was they basically are a house cleaning company, and they only use sustainable, environmentally friendly cleaning products. And I know one of the big things that they did was the beach cleanup. Is every year they went up to Portsmouth, and they still do this. They go up to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and they go to the beach during Earth Day, and they bring their entire crew to to help out. And when you do things like that, I think when you engage with the community, you become really well known, and people want to work with you, because at the end of the day, I mean, people who will hire us are those who like us, who know us, and who trust us.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you're not, that there's no better way to gain that trust and really to get people to know you than to be engaged. So with that in mind, I mean, yes, the being in person is certainly a big thing. Have you done any kind of like social media outreach where you engage with the community? Even using this new thing I've heard about, TikTok, right? Everyone's on TikTok now,
right? Yeah.
Have you used that to kind of speak to the community and say, listen, this is what's going on? Did you know about this or that?
Yeah, I've done that. I guess it was probably about 3 months when I was getting into TikTok, until I found myself spending most of my day making these things and editing them, and then bringing and then I just like, okay, this is not good for my brain. I am spending way too much time on this. And also my 17-year-old daughter was like, Mom, little embarrassed that I was on TikTok, and really couldn't believe it. I am still on TikTok. Like, I look at TikTok all the time. I think it's a great resource for anything you want to learn. I mean, it's amazing how many people are sharing their knowledge on there,
Yeah.
But I've done that. But my God, yeah, it's a rabbit hole. It is a rabbit hole. But it's an interesting rabbit hole. I used to have this thing when I was a kid that was like it's 1854 set of encyclopedias called the Miscellany of Useless Knowledge, and it was just random stuff. And so that's kind of what TikTok's like, but it happens to be in video form. But
it's YouTube, but something that you actually can digest. You're not watching an hour and a half video any longer. But so let me ask you, have you found though that putting that video content out there has helped drive business to you? And kind of the second part of that is, how do you get people to find you, on those video sharing sites, whether it's TikTok, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, thing that you can organically try and get found, but oftentimes it does involve putting some budget behind it and actually advertising.
Yeah. Well, I think the TikTok, building the podcast business was more related to TikTok, right? So, and if I look at my podcast as a different business than my architecture business, then the idea would be sponsors, listeners, and then sponsors will come out of how many listeners I have. But, it's pretty niche. My podcast is pretty niche, and it's difficult to get sponsors based on listeners, because I might have engaged listeners or people who really like the show, but there might only be, I don't know how many of them. It's hard to know even, right? So trying to make money off the podcast through sponsors isn't, I finally made $400, I think, which is, not nothing, but.
No, but I think with the podcast, though, really opens up the avenue, though, again, to become the authority in your space. And, when you're talking to people and you're going to events and you're on Facebook or Instagram or whatever your social platform of choice is, or I should say social platform du jour, really, because it changes.
It does.
It gives you that outlet that you say, hey, check this out, check that out. And it does allow you to kind of branch out and become, organically without putting in, a $50 or $100 a day ad spend budget and things to that extent.
Yeah.
So one thing I'm curious about, so when you do meet people, are you Catherine or are you the House Maven?
Catherine. I don't really call myself a House Maven, but who knows? Maybe it'll get to me someday, and I'll just go around telling people I'm the House Maven. It was just kind of like I'm a little bit less. I don't even want to say I'm a little less serious than a lot of architects, but maybe I am. I mean, I feel like there are a lot of things to think about, and there's a lot of fun to be had in life. So why not have a little fun? I mean,
absolutely.
That's why. No, I never have introduced myself as the House Maven.
Sure.
But it does have a ring to it.
No, I love the concept. I mean, I'm seeing like a little caricature and building it into the logos and t-shirts and all of that.
Yep, definitely. Well, I have another podcast that is about small firm architecture. So the business of architecture, basically. So we're talking mostly to small firm architects, and we talk a lot about marketing in that. And so there've been all sorts of things like building your audience type things with like Pat Flynn and those sorts of approaches.
Sure.
And then we just interviewed Michael Port, who wrote content-based marketing. So that's always interesting. And of course, since I already have a podcast, I mean, you have a podcast, it's a beautiful way to be able to talk to somebody that you want to connect with, So like I can reach out to somebody and say, hey, I saw this article about you. I mean, it's true too. I saw this article about you about how you had difficulty getting your house made into an all-electric house. And I would love to talk to you about that because I really would like to know about his situation. But it's so much easier to do that if you already have the content in place, like the
the platform too. I mean, I can tell you, we were down in Orlando at the National Kitchen Bath Association conference in February, and I heard a couple of people speaking and they're pretty heavy hitters out there. And I said, geez, this is something that I think my audience would love. And I approached them and I said, hey, can Andrew Forline was one of these guys. I said, hey, can we get you on the podcast? I think people would love to hear. Andrew is at the very forefront of the most high-tech modern appliances and how to really turn your kitchen into basically what you saw in the Jetsons growing up.
Yeah.
and it's amazing stuff actually does exist now.
It is amazing.
I don't think, I could have talked to him at the conference for 30 or 45 seconds.
Yeah.
But I mean, what better way to get half an hour with someone who really
and you build a relationship with them that way,
No doubt. So I do think that, it's a great way to help build the business and to build your authority, as well as just to, from a personal standpoint, you get some FaceTime with some people who can really teach you something.
Yeah. And then if you're building your audience or building your fans, and another thing too, we were looking at was Jesse Cole from the Savannah Bananas. Do you know that guy?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
So he's just his whole way of looking at the customer experience, I thought was really valuable too. Because then when they do come in, like, how can you create the best experience for your clients so that they will say, like, I had the best experience doing my kitchen over. It was like they did this and this and this over and above what they needed to do. So what does it look like from the client's point of view? So just creating these relationships that are going to result in people raving about you somehow, or at least recommending you enthusiastically. So I think that's kind of the key, because I've tried like putting inserts in newspaper, like over the last 25 years, we put an insert in newspapers. Yeah. We tried like home, at the time it was Service Magic, but Home Advisor, which I give that a big thumbs down, because it's just a bunch of tire kickers who aren't even there when you show up. And I feel like I am getting zero.
Yeah, it's better than that. With someone like that, it just becomes it's a race to who can get to the phone first and who can have the absolute cheapest price. Who's willing to lose the most money?
It's a race to the bottom with those. Yeah, for sure.
It really is. So, I've actually been published a couple times on articles I wrote about the importance of exclusive leads, and what you don't want to buy shared leads. It's one thing to go with with a lead generation company who can help you, get the quality leads and get you the quantity that you need. But if you're competing with 6 other people, and it's just becomes okay, well, Joe down the street says he can do my cabinets for $15,000, and you're telling me 17,000. Can you do 14.5? I mean,
right.
That's not.
It's not where you want to be. I mean,
No.
I'm an architect, but we're always saying to each other, do we want to be the cheapest architect in town? Not really. I mean, that's not a good way to be known just because. But if you do have six people answering the same lead, then it's kind of important to be able to communicate your value. So we spend a lot of time thinking about what is my value and how can I communicate that to people,
Yeah.
because they're not all equal. The bids are not all equal, even though people think
They're
they are.
not, but I find with shared leads and those kind of sites, the people who you're talking to don't often care about what
Oh,
the
they don't
value
care. Yeah.
you can bring. They
No.
care about, how cheap are you, and
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
and
So they're
just
not ideal clients, right? So why are we even
not at all.
talking to them? So
Yeah. And
House is a similar thing. Did House for a while.
yeah, I find that I think your best lead is generally somebody who's going to find your Google business profile. They're searching for an architect near me.
Mhm.
They look at the business profile. They start reading reviews. Have you worked with 15, 20, 30 people in their neighborhood versus does no one even heard of you? And it gives the Google business profile now. It gives so much information, gives so much engagement with the community. And honestly, there's no better, way to get someone to trust you than to say, hey, this is what your neighbors say about me. Because who cares what I say about me?
Mhm.
Clearly I'm going to be biased, right? I'm
Yeah.
going to tell you I'm the best at everything. Well, you know what? Maybe I'm not.
Mhm.
But if your neighbor down the street says, wow, look at the lighting in our kitchen now after the skylight was put in, after this wall was moved here, after whatever it might be.
Mhm.
Pay a lot more attention, I think.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, that goes back to the referrals from people
Yeah,
who people, mutual friends and connections. So,
yeah. So have you kind of put together any kind of initiatives to generate more online reviews or Google
mm,
testimonials, things like that?
well, I mean, I don't have that many clients a year, so I might have 30 projects a year. So it's not like I can't just directly ask them, right? So when the project
Yeah.
ends, the thing is, I do work for some contractors. Some of my work, or probably half of my work, is generated from contractors. So I work for them as a sub.
Right.
So I don't get to ask those clients for reviews. So they're really only the ones that work with me directly. And I haven't done it lately because I just get embarrassed asking, like, hey, will you write for when I had the House Pro
Yeah.
account, I did, because you get certain amount of
Yeah.
best of house stickers if you
Right.
have certain number of reviews. And I'm a sucker for like gold star type things. So I wanted the stickers or whatever they are, the little icons you can put on your
Yeah.
website. But so I asked them for reviews. Supposedly supposed to do it also for my podcast guests. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like I'm already asking enough of people.
Absolutely.
Or these
Well,
people just paid me a ton of money and then I'm going to say, so can you review me? And which is, I guess, standard, right? But so what I do is I ask them.
yeah. What I find a lot of my clients like to do is, during the walkthrough, the final one, they say, hey, would you
Mm,
mind if we videotape this? We love to get people's reactions when they see the final product, and just give us a couple words that we can share with our team.
mm,
And that's actually really helped a lot. And particularly, in today's digital age, that video and that, or even just the image, I think with a couple sentences goes so far, because
mhm.
it goes to show that you have real people, you have real
That's true.
customers talking
Yeah.
about you. And
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
actually a big part of all of our, our campaigns all revolve around review generation and reputation management. Because you can have the fanciest website, you can have the slickest ads, you can have the
Hmm.
greatest offers, no payments for 3 years. That's fine, all well and dandy, but people still want to know, hey, you're coming into my home.
Hmm.
What are you going to do? And
Yeah.
it's important.
Yeah, and again, I that comes back down to relationships and how you treated other people and how they then tell other people how you treated them and everything else. So, I mean, I think one important thing about marketing is understanding where you're going. So, having an idea of your goals, and my goal now might be I'd like to have 3 pretty sizable projects a year, and that's it. I don't want to be working on 20 projects at the same time just because of my own quality of life. I'd rather work and really dedicate myself and focus on one project at a time, let's say, or one and a half.
Mhm.
So since I want that, that means I'm going for a different kind of project. So I'm not doing all of the, like, only a kitchen remodel, let's say, or just a bathroom. just because it takes a lot of my energy and focus, even though it's a
Mhm.
small project, so now if I only want to have 3 projects and I want them to be in historic houses and I want them to involve some kind of sustainability. So now that's, as Michael Port calls it, like my red rope policy. So anybody who's doing that can get beyond, and we'll just have talks beyond that. But other than that, I'm saying no, I can't do it. So knowing that I want those, how does that get my marketing focused on getting those 3 projects a year?
Yeah, no, and I think that's where it becomes a, very selective, and how do you where are the customers? Where are your people hanging out, whether it's online, whether it's offline? I mean, you just need to be where they are.
Yeah.
And that's,
It's hard to know where they are all the time.
it is. I mean, the nice thing is you've been in the business for a while, so you've got a reputation. Even if it's not New Bedford, you've got a reputation in Massachusetts, New England. You have a portfolio to show. Let me ask you something. What would you say to a new architect or someone just getting into the kitchen design space? I mean, what advice, what golden nugget of knowledge could you drop on them to help them kind of flourish?
So you're looking for a golden nugget. Well, I mean, I think I keep saying the same thing, which is to develop relationships, but with, let's say, real estate professionals. Maybe go to open houses of the houses you would like to work in, so that you can get to know who's marketing those and understand, maybe listen to what people are talking about. I love all of the Jetson technology with the appliances. And I mean, it's just fun. I just love going to the various showrooms and seeing what's out there now. And then if that's something that you're into, I mean, I would assume that people are interested in the whole industry because they're in it, right? So then just go and share your enthusiasm with the people who are selling the appliances, or just get to know everything you can about what you're actually putting into the spaces, and decide like what you're going to stand for, and then have that's kind of a way of niching down, I guess, and really focusing on a specialty that you might do. So yeah. So I don't know. That wasn't like one golden nugget, but just
that's a couple actually. That's great advice.
Some nuggets.
Yeah. So one thing I did want to ask you here is, as we're coming to the end of our 30 minutes here, people, would, I'm sure, have liked what you had to say. You've talked about a couple different podcasts. So where would they find you? Where do they hear you on each of these different podcasts?
Okay. Well, my home renovation podcast is Talking Home Renovations with the House Maven. And you can look that up on the website or anywhere you get podcasts. And there's a wide variety of subjects in there. So people who just like to listen to other people's stories about their home renovations, we have a lot of those too. And then my other podcast is Context and Clarity with Jeff Eccles and Katharine MacPhail. And that is about if you're starting up your own business, you might actually be interested. There's a lot of talk. That's what we talk about, is like how to market your business, how to start your business systems, all that stuff.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And then of course you have the actual architectural firm itself.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. I occasionally work at that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's Demios Architects.
Yeah. Demios Architects. It's supposed to mean, that's okay. It's supposed to mean, having to do with people. We started that, my husband and I, years ago, and we had a storefront with art and things like, but then the name kind of carries on. But I am interested in people, so I guess that's still appropriate.
Well, that's fantastic. And if somebody wanted to get in touch with you directly, how would they do that? Is there a phone number, email, anything that you would have people reach out to?
Yeah, on both of those, if you go to both of those websites, it has various ways of getting in touch with me. Probably email is the best way, and I'm happy to answer any questions or anything and helping. I do like to help people, so.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. It was really quite a pleasure to have you and to
nice
have
to meet
you.
You.
You too, and to share some of this information. And like I said, I mean, it's great for people who are getting started to kind of listen to someone who's been there, who's been able to grow a business, been able to create a couple different podcasts and different outlets, and hopefully, our listeners will take from this, at least one or two actionable steps that they can use.
I hope so.
So, all right. Well, again, this was Michael Goldstein. It is Katharine MacPhail on the Crushing with Kitchen Remodeling Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to everybody again next Friday. All right. Bye-bye.